Welcome, Dr. Epicure. What we're going to discuss in this section are the three lands of the Maya, a watery underworld, tropical seasons, and growing corn in the rainforest. Because we're going to start our final section on the classic Maya world. We're following that outline right up above my head, and we're going to proceed to answer that question right there. Of course, all archaeology begins with a research question, and this is no different. And the question is, the classic Maya maintained a sustainable settlement of the tropical rainforest for 1,000 years. Then, in the 8th and 9th century, this ecological balance unraveled, leading to the classic Maya collapse. The question here is, what seems to have happened in the collapse? How did an environmental balance become so upset that an entire civilization failed within 2 centuries? What happened to turn that civilization into that archaeological record? And we're going to use everything we've learned so far: depositional episodes, stratigraphy, post-abandonment processes, cultural ecology, to answer that question. So we're going to start off by simply asking a question. Who are the Maya? The Maya are probably the largest of all Native American groups. They number somewhere between 6 and 9 million individuals. It depends how you count them, and it depends how you handle the Mexican census numbers, because Mexico handles its census in odd ways. At any rate, the Maya are themselves, if you look there in the upper left, they're divided into about 22 distinct ethno-linguistic groups that are scattered across the countries of North America. The largest of these groups are the Yucatec. There's roughly about 2.5 million Yucatec speakers. But as you can see, the vast majority of the Maya live in their old homeland of highland Guatemala. Although you've got other groups like the Huastec in eastern Mexico, and you even have a large number of Maya in the United States. But yeah, most Maya today live in their original Guatemalan homeland, and that number is about 5.4 million people. And the Maya are a very successful group. They have traditionally, despite a number of setbacks, they have traditionally done quite well. They have an exceptionally rich culture, a really interesting philosophical perspective on the world, and as we'll see, a completely fascinating and interesting and unique past. They've got this incredible civilization behind them. And a lot of interest the Maya have attracted a lot of interest. And in particular, I mean, there are movies that have been made about the Maya. Some of these are good, some of these are absolutely terrible, some of them are a little bit in the middle. And these include masterpieces like Ixcanul, which is a movie in which the entire movie is spoken in Caquichel Maya. Or this includes, Mel Gibson's absolutely dreadful Apocalypto, which is supposedly spoken in Yucatec Maya for the most of the movie. And Apocalypto's gotten a really bad reputation, largely because it deserves it. It looks nice. The Maya cities look cool in Apocalypto. The sets look great. The story is not this. It's got a lot of other problems, but it looks good. I will say that it does look good. There's Yul Brynner's forgotten Maya movie called Kings of the Sun. There's an absolutely great children's animated movie called The Book of Life, which uses a lot of the concepts of sort of the Maya philosophical look on the world, sort of uses these concepts of Maya cosmology. In particular, it uses Jeboba, but we'll get to Jeboba in a bit. And the Maya are not just limited to Latin America. Poor conditions at home have led upwards of possibly 1 million Maya to emigrate into the United States. And if there are 1 million Maya in the United States, this makes them the largest group of Native Americans inside the borders of the United States. And the Maya are not evenly distributed across the United States. They seem to be mostly settling in one of 2 areas, either in South Texas around Houston, mostly in the Houston area where they've got a really good relationship with the local Safeway market chain. And over in South Florida, there's another huge concentration of Maya. And the Maya have a really distinct advantage over other new immigrants into the United States because The Maya, because they have such close-knit kin ties and such close family ties and such really big families, that means when they do immigrate, they're not sort of alone in a new land. That they come to the United States, they come to Houston, or they come to South Florida, and they're immediately welcomed into this large collection of people who look like them, people who speak like them, and people they're generally related to. So their close ethnic affiliations and kin ties give the Maya immigrants into the United States a really distinct advantage. The Maya are doing really well. In fact, the Maya look to be something of a 21st century Native American success story. And there are Maya around today. And you know, there's a Maya couple, you know, right up there. The guy's, you know, having a cool beverage on a hot afternoon. His wife is dressed in traditional Maya garb, talking on her smartphone, carrying their little kid. The Maya are still around. And you encounter this a lot when you look up the Maya online, or you would look up some of the kind of new agey stuff about the Maya. And the Maya are often portrayed as having vanished after the collapse of their old classic civilization. This is not actually true. Their civilization might have collapsed, but the people are still there. I mean, Roman civilization collapsed and the Italians are still around. So even though the old civilization is gone, the still remain. And again, you know, if numbers and prosperity are any guide, the Maya are doing really, really well in the 21st century. And they have this completely unique background, being perhaps best known for their absolutely fantastic pre-Columbian civilization. In fact, this is known as classic Maya civilization, and it is the focus of what we're going to be learning about over the next few lectures. It's called Classic Maya Civilization. It consists of the period roughly between AD 200 and AD 1000 in the rainforests and semi-arid scrub of the Yucatan Peninsula. It was a highly advanced civilization. In fact, arguably, it's the highly advanced of all Native American civilizations. It possessed advanced calendric systems, advanced mathematical concepts, a fully literate script, fabulous architecture. I mean, it's just a truly remarkable civilization. It was never politically unified, however. And Maya civilization at its classic height, mostly consisted of about 40 or so city-states scattered across the forests of Central America. There was never a single Maya state or never a single Maya emperor. And these are what some of those 40 cities might have looked like. And we'll investigate these very unique Maya cities in a tick. But this is what these cities looked like, these huge cities in the tropical rainforest, in an incredibly delicate environment to live. Yet they had these huge cities, towering pyramids, tens of thousands of people living and working and sustaining themselves in an ecological balance with the rainforest. And inside these cities, they did all kind of incredible things. And one of the more incredible things they did is they produced one of the world's great traditions of art. Maya art is stunningly beautiful. It is curvilinear. It is naturalistic. It has a fluidity to it. People look like people, and all the people look the same. They bend. They grimace with their faces. They make gestures. The people look animated. And there's this motion and this dynamism to Maya art that is just absolutely incredible. And it's not just that the Maya produced one of the greatest ceramic traditions of Native America. They produced one of the greatest ceramic traditions in the world. I mean, there's maybe the ancient Greeks, maybe, ancient China produced a ceramic art tradition of this quality. Just absolutely incredible. I mean, look at the dancing figure there on the lower left. He's in motion. He's relaxed. His spine is bending. He looks like a person. Just absolutely incredible. We're going to meet that guy later. He's a hero twin. And look at these warriors on procession. All of them look different. All of them are carrying their weapons. There is a dynamism to the scene that makes Maya art absolutely wonderful and absolutely unique. And at the apex of their art, one of the central foci of their art is veneration of the maize god. We're going to encounter the maize god later. But here he is, emerging. Oh, there he is, right up above my head. There's the maize god being resurrected from a crack in the turtle's shell, the earth turtle, which is the earth is a turtle in Maya cosmology. Here's the resurrection of the maize god himself as the hero twins pull him up from the earth for him to be reborn. And there is the maize god himself with his head shaped like a cob of corn, with the sprouts and the corn silk coming off of the top of his head. Absolutely incredible art. And one of the things the Maya are most famous for are Maya hieroglyphs. The Maya possessed a fully literate script. They could express any idea they wanted. They could express any concept they wanted in their indigenous written language. And this is what Maya languages look like. This is what the Maya hieroglyphs look like. Incredibly dense texts containing records of rituals, genealogical records, history of events, history of people, places, things. All of this went recorded, and the Maya produced the richest literary tradition in the Western Hemisphere. Just absolutely amazing. And some of this is, thousands of years old. Overall, the sequence of Maya civilization follows that timeline right up above my head. Maya civilization is not limited to the classic period. The Maya sequence more or less runs like this. You have an early civilization which has a terrible name. It's called the pre-classic Maya civilization. And it lasted from about 800 BC to about AD 200. And it's badly named because pre-classic civilization wasn't really pre to anything. It was literally its own fully formed civilization that was birthed in the rainforests. It flourished there. It had these giant cities. And it collapsed for very poorly understood reasons in the first few centuries AD. Now, this civilization, this earlier classic civilization or pre-classic civilization, sort of goes away by AD 200 and is succeeded by the classic period. This is the period we are going to be talking about, the period of the classic Maya civilization. And classic Maya civilization is again about AD 200 to about 1000. Although if you look at different books and you look at different sources, you're going to get slightly different dates. Some of them might say 300 to 900. Other ones will say 100 to like 1200. So you're going to get some wobbly dates if you look them up. The dates I'm going to use and that we're going to use here, because they're my dates, it's my class, are AD 200 to 1000. But classic Maya civilization itself is divided into roughly 4 distinct periods, and you can see them right up above my head. That you have the proto-classic civilization, which is the very first stirrings of the classic civilization. And that's basically the first century, 200 to 300. That's followed by the early classic, when all of these cities sort of first start to come into their own. And that's roughly 250 to 550. That is succeeded by sort of the apex of classic Maya civilization, a period called the late classic. And that's basically 550 to 800. And then that is followed by the period of the classic Maya collapse. The classic Maya civilization did not collapse all at once. It wasn't like, and then the civilization is over. What happens is that there's this rolling collapse as different parts of the Maya world slowly fail one after the other. And the entire process lasts 200 years, roughly 800 to 1000. But definitely by AD 1000, classic civilization is gone. And it is replaced by a very different civilization, kind of the third Maya civilization, which is called the post-classic civilization. Again, I don't like the term. I didn't come up with it. I would just call it the third classic. At any rate, it is its own civilization, and it lasts for about 500 years. It is not a civilization of like big cities. It's generally a civilization of small towns and generally 1 or 2 really big religious centers, big religious cities. And it is the post-classic that is followed by the conquest period. Christopher Columbus sails across the ocean, the Spanish invade Central America, and then basically spend the next, 150, 200 years fighting the various Maya kingdoms. And again, this is not a single event. It's not like the Spanish show up, smash and conquer the Maya, and then that's it. But rather, it's this long, drawn-out process. that it takes Spanish armies, until 1697 before the last Maya kingdom is finally subdued, a place called Tayasal. And kind of to put that in kind of a North American time frame, 1697 is, Jamestown has been around for almost 90 years at that point. There are English colonies on the east coast of North America by the time the last Maya kingdom finally is subdued by the Spanish. But even then, the Maya persisted under colonial rule, and they persisted during this really awful series of civil wars during the Cold War itself, after in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And they are posed for a very bright future today. But we're not interested in the Maya present. We are going to go all the way back to classic civilization. And to do that, we have to start with talking about the environment, because we got to use all that cultural ecology stuff that you learned last time. Basically, the classic Maya inhabited 3 different environmental zones. And these are the 3 lands of the Maya. One is these volcanic mountain ranges in the south, that's called the highlands. 2 are sort of the northern lowlands, which is at the top part of the map. And the 3rd is the southern lowlands. That's the dense jungle we're going to talk about. So first you have the highlands, and the highlands are located in the south. The highlands are a series of volcanic mountain ranges, and in those volcanic mountain ranges, it produces a lot of really high quality stone. And that's what's really important for the Maya, because it's from here where comes a lot of the raw materials that fueled their civilization. Obsidian, basalt, jade, all of that is coming from the southern mountains and what is today highland Guatemala. The second is the very, very north, the very, very top of that map, way up there on the upper left. And that is the northern lowlands. That's the second area. That's this sort of northern semi-arid scrub plain in the north. It possesses a number of natural resources of its own. It possesses these natural salt flats and easy access to marine resources. I mean, literally Cancun is right there. It's just a stunningly beautiful place. And this is what these areas actually look like. Right up above my yellow box, that's the volcanic highlands. Those are the highlands themselves. This is a modern city, of course, but you can see those mountains. And the first time you see the mountains of Guatemala, you're always a little shocked because the mountains are tall and pointy. They look like volcanoes because they're all volcanoes. The whole area is characterized by earthquakes. Every now and again, a volcano will pop off. A volcano popped off a couple years ago. And that's what the highlands look like. And if you look at the upper left, that's what the northern lowlands look like. These kind of low scrub forests that sort of ease into the Gulf of Mexico. That's the northern lowlands. And if you look there on the lower left, that right there, that's the area we're mostly going to be talking about. That's the third area. That is the southern lowlands, dense tropical rainforest. And that's the middle one, this dense tropical rainforest inhabited by this mix of plants and animals, very, very poor soil. In fact, one of the characteristics of rainforest environments is that most of the nutrients are not locked in the ground. They're actually locked into the multi-canopied rainforest, not in the thin soils on top of limestone karst. So this is the third area we're going to talk about, this incredibly delicate rainforest environment, an area with very, very poor soils, an area that doesn't have obsidian, basalt, or jade, an area that doesn't have easy access to marine resources, an area that doesn't have natural salt flats, an area in which growing corn is actually really quite difficult. But it's this third area, that area in the middle, the dense tropical rainforest. That is where classic civilization will be born, in the most unlikely place imaginable. Additionally, water is actually a really big problem throughout the entire Yucatan. The peninsula itself, imagine, picture the volcanic highlands. Everything north of that is basically this huge shelf of limestone. And the problem with limestone is very porous. It's very easily eroded. Hence, many rivers tend to cut really deeply. They tend to just saw straight through this limestone. And sometimes the rivers will actually cut into the limestone so far that the rivers themselves will actually go underground. So you have these underground rivers. And in the ground, underneath the earth, there are these underground caverns. There are these huge cavern systems. There are the remains of underground rivers. There's active underground rivers. So there is this vast underworld underneath the ground in the classic Maya. This is not some crazy painting. This is not some, this doesn't come out of the imagination of some, fantastically gifted illustrator. This is a photograph. This is a photograph of one of these underground rivers. This is the Rio Candelaria, if I remember correctly. So you have these incredibly watery cave systems that underlie almost the entire peninsula. They exist. They're down there. And sometimes accidents can connect this vast watery underworld to the surface world. This was a picture that sort of went viral and made the rounds of the internet a number of years ago. This was basically a local water leak eroded the limestone, created this artificial cenote, and then connected a residential neighborhood to a vast cave system underneath their feet, and they didn't even know it was there. So, I mean, it is this incredibly spooky underground system that is underneath the entirety of the classic Maya world. Now, the Maya actually had a name for this watery underworld, and it was called Jeboba. All right? X's in a lot of Mesoamerican languages have an SH sound, so X becomes shush. So, Jeboba. And that's what the classic Maya called this watery underworld. It was a place of great danger, because it's really dangerous. It's a place of great mystery. It's a place of great magic. It is a place ruled over by these incredibly spooky monsters. These monsters that are called the 9 Lords of Death. And here are some of the 9 Lords of Death right here. All of these 9 Lords of Death are named after, they're these powerful gods that are named after diseases. They're named after pestilence. There's a huge bat god, and he's carrying in one hand a tray full of human hearts and hands and feet. Right up above me, there's a giant toad god, and he's holding a bowl full of human hands and eyeballs. And next to him, there's this huge snake, which is opening its mouth and it's vomiting forth another god. And up there on the upper left, we'll meet him later. Up there on the upper left, there's that guy. His name is the Water Lily Jaguar, the jaguar god of darkness who lives down in Jeboba. Remember Jeboba. And the thing about Jeboba is kind of a real place. I mean, these watery underworlds actually exist. They are down there, and they are incredibly dangerous places inhabited by bats and snakes and giant toads. All manner of goofy, creepy stuff is down there. Now, the environment. We have to talk about the environment. This is the tropics. So first off, you need to get rid of your idea of regular seasons. In the tropics, there isn't really a sort of a summer, fall, winter, spring cycle. Because you're close to the equator, there's a great regularity in the seasons. So instead of having, summer, fall, winter, spring, there's really 2 seasons. There's a dry season and a wet season. And then there's sort of 2 sub-seasons in the middle of that. If you look at the chart right up above my head, that's a chart of rainfall in the southern lowlands over the course of a single year. And you can see that it is not even. Basically, during the rainy season, it heavily rains every day. So the problem during the rainy season is too much water. But then, during the dry season, those rains cease to exist. And then the problem becomes not enough water. So you have this rainy season. And the rainy season starts in about mid-May, and it lasts until October. And it rains heavily every single day. It turns all the roads into mud. Now, this is interspersed with the hurricane season. Hurricane season lasts from June to November. And what the hurricane season is these big, powerful hurricanes will form in the mid-Atlantic and basically just come through the area. And the area, Guatemala and sort of Central America, gets basically plastered with a major hurricane roughly every 5 to 7 years. These monster hurricanes will just sweep across the entire area. And in fact, some of these hurricanes are so powerful and were so devastating that they appear to be mentioned in the classic Maya hieroglyphic record. Steve Houston deciphered a series of texts in 2006 where he noted that on the altar of this city-state called Naranjo, they apparently mention a great hurricane that passed through the area on the 3rd of June, roughly, most likely in the year 544, this very enormous, powerful hurricane. And even when they're not being hit with powerful hurricanes, you will occasionally get these just like devastating storm systems will just come out of the Atlantic and just sweep through the jungle. So you have a rainy season, and sort of halfway through the second half of your rainy season, you have the hurricane season. And then when the rainy season ends, your problem is not too much water. Your problem is that everything gets incredibly dry. And that is the dry season. And the dry season lasts from October to May. And the dry season is there's almost no rainfall. I mean, if you look at rainfall for January on this chart, it's almost zero. So there's very little rain. And what happens is that throughout the forest spends the entire dry season drying out. Almost all the available moisture vanishes. All the animals start coming like down to the water holes. And it's really creepy. Sometimes some of these big caves will dry out, and all of these like creepy crawly cave bugs have to come out in search of water. It's incredibly creepy. I found a big cave spider on the side of my tent once. It's absolutely harmless, but just completely terrifying. I think it was like this big. Anyway, because everything's been drying out by February or March, the very end of the dry season is known sometimes as the fire season. And it's in a period where basically the entire forest is bone dry. And all it takes is one lightning strike or one unattended campfire or some idiot flicking a cigarette out of a car window. Boom, conflagration. And the forests will burst into flame for almost 2 months. This is a major problem today with the rainforest in Guatemala. It absolutely would have had to have been a major problem during the period of the classic Maya. And again, major fires tend to strike the region roughly every 8 to 10 years. These massive fires will ripple through the region. If you look at this map right up above me, these are the 2017 fires. Each of those yellow dots is a major forest fire burning out of control. And if you look there on the left, you can actually watch the forests burn from space. And basically what happens is that the people of Guatemala will turn out, hundreds of people will turn out to fight these forest fires. I shouldn't laugh. Hundreds of people will turn out to fight these forest fires. But basically what they do is that they're not really trying to put out the fire. They're just trying to contain the fire until May comes. And then when mid-May comes, that's when the rainy season starts. And the rainy season will put out all of the fires. In fact, I have a very good friend of mine, and the 1 year the rainy season was like 2 weeks late, and they were all just flipping out because they were like, oh my God, these fires are just completely out of control. So it was a really bad fire season in 2017. There was another really bad fire season around, I think, 08 or 09. And then there was a really, really bad fire season back in 2003. But again, it's every like 8 to 10 years, you'll have these really powerful, devastating fires will sweep through the region. And so you're listening to this. You've got watery underworlds. You've got these seasons, which are not, which are not spring, summer, autumn, winter. The seasons in the tropics go rainy, hurricane, dry, fire. And there's very poor nutrients in the soil. You're like, why would anyone put this huge, complex civilization in this area, living among that? And the answer is, you're going to have to come up with the answer. So I'm going to tell you how the Maya actually grow corn in this incredibly difficult environment. And it is not an environment that is particularly conducive to agriculture, especially the growing of corn. Corn is a pretty neat crop, but it's a very hungry crop. Corn can produce a lot of calories and a lot of carbohydrates, but it's a very demanding crop on the soil. And it demands a lot of nutrients from the soil. And we've already established that the soil in the rainforest is not particularly good for crops. So the Maya had to figure out how to grow corn in the rainforest, and they absolutely did it. And they've become some of the greatest farmers in the world. So the Maya figured out how to sort of weave in their agricultural cycle with this pattern of wet, hurricane, dry, fire. But it involves two really good things. One, very, very precise timing. Two, a very close reading of weather patterns. If in this discussion, if you're wondering why the Maya have like 2 or 3 different rain gods, 2 or 3 different thunder gods, that's why. So this is how to grow corn in the rainforest. You have to have your corn seeds in the ground before the rain comes. So what you have to do is you have to clear the forest. So the first thing you do is before the rainy season starts, before the end of the dry season, in April and May, you do that in the upper left. You cut the forest down and you cut your cornfield out of the forest. And there's only about a 4-week window in which to get this done. So you take the forest, and then once you've cut down all the vegetation, you burn it. And that's what the Maya are doing right there. Those are very controlled agricultural burns. And what they're doing is that they're unlocking all of the nutrients in the biomass, turning it into ash, and seeding it into the ground. By burning parts of the forest, they are moving the forest nutrients into the soil, okay? And then they've got to start planting. And they've got to start planting just before the rains show up. If you miss that window, if you plant too soon, your plants sprout and then die of thirst. If you plant too late, the rains come and wash all the ash away and all your nutrients are gone. Miss that window and the corn dies in dry soil. Overshoot that window and the corn washes away in heavy rains. And that's what these guys are doing on the lower left. They're planting corn. They're using digging sticks. And generally they're planting corns and beans in the same hollow. So Maya agriculture is in fact very, very productive, but it requires very, very precise timing, and it is very unforgiving. You screw it up, you overshoot that window or you undershoot the rains, and you'll be prepared for a hungry year to follow. But if you do it absolutely correct, by July or August, the corn is absolutely ready to harvest. And here's a Maya dude, a very successful Maya farmer standing in the middle of his cornfield. Now, the rainy season doesn't end until October, November, but your corn is ready to harvest by July or August. So if you are a very hardworking farmer, you can actually then replant that same cornfield 2 or even 3 times in the same year. So in other words, you can get like 3 crops out of the same cornfield if you know what you're doing and if you've timed your corn planting precisely. However, due to high humidity, corn cannot be stored for very long. So the corn, once it's harvested, has got to be converted into food very, very quickly. And again, all it takes is an errant hurricane. A weird hurricane might come along, take your wonderfully prepared cornfield. That's what's happened there on the left. Gone, destroyed it. All right. But the thing to remember about a hurricane, and I want you to put a little exclamation point in your notes. It's an absolute disaster for the farmers it hits, but it is a highly localized disaster. The hurricane might come through and totally smash, a dozen farmers and then leave, their neighbors completely alone. And it doesn't even have to be a hurricane. There could just be a weird, unseasonable drought, or the rainy season might just stop in the middle. It's been known to do that. Or the rainy season might end a little early, and you watch as all of your corn dries out and dies. But again, these droughts tend to be highly localized. So you have corn in the rainforest, and it is highly productive, but disasters do occur. But when the disasters do occur, they tend to be highly localized. And this is why Maya farmers never put all of their cornfields together. Here's a satellite image of the village of Paso Caballos in northern Guatemala. And you can quite clearly see from this satellite image they have not put their cornfields together, but rather what they've done is they've scattered their cornfields across the forest itself. So the cornfields are traditionally distributed throughout the forest. That way, the surrounding trees can protect them from high winds. The surrounding trees can provide nutrients and maybe increase rainfall a little bit. That's one of the things trees do. And this way that if disaster strikes, it's not going to take all your cornfields out at the same time. By scattering your cornfields through the forest, no one cornfield is ever vulnerable at any given time. And that way you're never clear cutting the forest. Traditional Maya agriculture does not clear cut the tropical rainforest. And if it's done correctly, you will harvest a massive amount of corn and beans. Again, the Maya are some of the most experienced farmers in the world. They're some of the best farmers in the world. And here are modern Maya spreading out their corn to dry in the tropical sun. If it's done correctly, if you've got your timing down perfectly, and if you've got luck on your side, you will reap enormous harvests. And everyone gets fed. Oh, she's enjoying her little tamale. And we're going to move on to the next section. We're going to talk about forests, animals, jaguars, the hero twins, and the 9 lords of darkness. And I will see you there.